Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Tech Talk with us in Netcompany. Uh, Today, we are going to talk about automating our development environment. So, I think we will just get started. So, this is the agenda about automating our development environment. So, I will shortly introduce myself. That's the why I'm part, and we will briefly introduce the development environment. What is that? And then we will have a look on a couple of tools we are going to use in the demo later on, where we will use Ansible and Docker. And of course, we will use most of the part with the demo. We are going to use these tools and build our own development environment or the configuration that we can run later on. Before we go into the ending part, where we will summarize what we have done, and we'll also share a couple of resources. So I think we will just go on. So let's see. Who am I? I am Eric. I'm 29 years old from a small place called Rena, but currently living in Oslo. I have a degree in information systems from University of Agder. But since graduating in 2018, I've been with Netcompany and follow the ladder here, the career during the Netcompany Academy. So as you can see, I have had these positions from consultant to senior architect, and got newly promoted now in this year to managing architect. So that's short about me. So and then we have this today's topic, development environment, or automating this, because why should we use time to manually install everything when we can write code and just run this for our new laptop or other computers? The development environment is briefly summarized from SUSE.com here. As you can see, it's a development environment is the collection of processes and tools that are used to develop the source code for a program or software product. In essential, that means the total package of the tools and languages and everything that we use in our daily work to produce our solutions with code. Usually, it's referred to as IDE, an integrated development environment. So, and those are usually a package solution that comes out of the box with usually a code editor. You have a debugger, build tools, syntax highlighting for the languages you are using, and so on. You also have those integrating version control systems like Git, and also some powerful refactoring tools. So some examples of this are IntelliJ, Visual Studio, primarily for Java and .NET, and you also have NetBeans, Eclipse, and probably a bunch of more IDs out there. But you also have this other solution where we can customize our own development environment. So, and primarily then build that from a terminal. And that will be more in that direction we'll go to today. So we and usually when we are building our environment with that, we can use tools like V or Vim or NeoVim. Those are just building on each other. Or if you are more like this Emacs guy, you could install that. Or and we could also have TMXX panes. You can synchronize files between our machines, and so on. So all of this we will try to do with code. And to do this, we have Ansible. So we will use Ansible as our main tool to achieve this. And Ansible is an automation tool provided by Red Hat, where we can write our configuration as code. It's declarative, so it means that we will write what we want. And it's also trying to be idempotent. It doesn't necessarily be idempotent, but you should try to achieve that when you're writing your Ansible code. So we can only apply changes. So if you run the same script over and over again, it's only the changes that will be applied. So we will have further look into this in the demo. Ansible could be used on one or more hosts or inventories. That means we could run it on one computer or many computers. And it's also used for a lot of use cases. We have this configuration management. It's also used for app deployment, continuous deployment, can spin up and down Docker containers. It's also used for security automation. You can also configure networking with Ansible. And it's also used for orchestration. So there are a bunch of use cases for Ansible. So, but today we will have a look at it from the configuration management perspective. So what does this actually mean? If you want to install Docker on your laptop and you go to docker.com and get started, they will give you these instructions where you have to run these commands. This is for Linux. So you have to run your update, and then you need to install some CA certificates, curl, you need GPG, and so on. And there are a bunch of steps. And it also comes with more steps, so you can run your Docker commands without need for the root user or the sudo command. So instead of always trying to remember this and go and do this every time you have a new computer, we could just write it as code instead, like this. So this is Ansible code. So this is exactly the same as we saw in the instructions, where we have these tasks that are has its own name that describes what do we want to do, and this is written with Linux in mind. So we will use the apt package manager to install the packages that was shown in the instructions from Docker. As you also can see, we also have these tags. We will come back to that, but tags will help us organize those tasks, so we can run some of the tasks, we can run all of the tasks, we can make it adjustable for our use cases. So we're just short walking through this. We have the installation of required system packages. We have adding the GPG key for the Docker image package. We are adding this Docker repository to our machine. And then we will run this update and actually install the Docker client. And we will also ensure that we have this Docker group and the user as the instruction said on the previous page here, as it says here. So we will have a look at this in the demo as well. And when we have this file, we can run this with this simple command, Ansible playbook install, and with the tag Docker in this use case, but it doesn't necessarily need to use the tag though. So this is just a simple playbook to install Docker. And we will also use Docker in this session to to test our configuration and see if it works as expected when we are developing our own playbook. Yeah, and you also get the benefits with Docker that it's isolated in the containers, so you can also run multiple replicas of it. So you can have spin up and run the Ansible playbook to install your Java environment or .NET environment, or you could Node environment, and you can run those in separate containers if you want. Or you can just put everything in one container, or as I will show in the demo later on, I will just install it directly on the machine as well, on my own machine. So yeah, and we will also have some custom scripts to help us test and verify our changes rapidly. So yeah, I think that's a really short introduction for the tools. So I think we can just go on for the demo. So I will change over to share my screen here, where I have my terminal. So I hope everyone sees that now. And I will just go on like this. I will bring up my cheat notes on another screen here. So just to prove that this is a new machine, this is just an empty Ubuntu box. I have nothing installed. I can see if I try to run Ansible, Docker, there are nothing here. So to just let us get started building a playbook here, I will just create a new folder. I call it Devon. I will navigate to this folder. So I think this will be our workspace for this demo session. So let's get to the fun part. Let's start building our own playbook. So I will just create an install script that will make it easier for us to install Ansible, because we need Ansible, at least Ansible, probably Git if you want to store your configuration in a version controlled system. So I will create an Ansible script here, or a bash script, to ensure that we have Ansible installed on the machine where we want to run these playbooks. So I have cheated a bit. So I already have a script here. Just walk very slowly through it. We have this. I tried to consider Mac users as well. It means I have just found the code. I haven't actually tested those because I'm not a Mac user. But I try to include them as well, though. So, but this is just a simple script where you can just select your OS, preferably Linux or Mac. As you can see, I'm on a Windows computer here, but I'm running this Windows subsystem for Linux, so I have Ubuntu installed here. So when I'm going to run this script later on, I will choose Linux, and we will run these commands here. That's yeah, just ensure that we have Ansible repo and install curl git and some common software properties, and Ansible, of course, because we are going to use Ansible. And just if you don't select any of them, you will just get a message that we will abort the installation of Ansible. So I think we could save this one, and we need to make it executable. So we just run this command, some magical stuff, and we will just run the script. So let's see, I will choose, just for fun, let's take another number. Okay, so I wasn't able to install Ansible with that one. So let's try Linux instead, though. It prompts me for my sudo password, since I added these sudo commands in the script. And as you can see, it started running those those commands that will add the Ansible repository to my machine and of course install the necessary tools that we were looking on in the script. So just give that a second to finish. So in the meantime, if you haven't noticed, we have added some polls. Very good answer, where we just see if people have any preferences for the IDE. So and if you have any experience with Ansible before. So this is a good time to answer those questions, I think. Yes, then it's done. So now we have Ansible on our machine, so we could just verify that by running Ansible version. And you can see Ansible core 2.14.2. So, and Ansible also utilizes Python in the background, but Python is coming out of the box with Ubuntu. Yeah, so just to get quickly started with a playbook and the concepts of running a playbook, we will create an install.yaml file. And here we will just define our hosts where we are going to run this configuration. That means localhost. Mostly we will run it on localhost, but it doesn't mean you have to actually run local. You can run it on other inventories and hosts, but I won't touch into that today. But it's very well defined in the Ansible documentation. So as we saw earlier, we will have a task. So just to verify that Ansible works and we can run a playbook, we will create a task that says hello. This could be anything, and we will use the debug module where we could write the message, hello world. And of course, we have to be a little bit nice for ourselves, so we will put in a smiley. So we will save this. And then we will try running this playbook by using Ansible playbook install.yaml. Hopefully it will print hello world with a smiley for us. Yeah, and we actually got that here. So everything is working. We're all happy for now. So let's start with the fun part. I mentioned in the presentation that we were going to utilize Docker. So why don't recreate the playbook that I showed in the presentation and make it possible for us to create our own environments in Docker images or in Docker containers. So let's modify the playbook. So instead of using this say hello world, we will replace it with another task where we will say become true. That means basically means that Ansible will ask you to or we give Ansible the permission to run a sudo, and we will add a pre-task. That's at least in the Linux environment. Usually in all those setup guides you will find for all the software you will try to install, it will always say something like before installing anything, keep your repository updated. So you will be asked, and they will always instruct you to run this sudo apt update. Or you can also have this other variant that is sudo apt get update. So instead of telling that for each task we are going to run, we can just create a pre-task that will be run before we are starting. So let's ensure that we have the right indentation there. So yes, so we will update cache, or you could call it repository. We will use the apt manager since I'm on Linux. And say update cache, yes. And that's basically the same as running this sudo apt update command on your machine. And since we are going to install Docker, as I showed in the example, we will tag the task with Docker, so we can just ensure that all the tasks that are tagged with Docker will use these pre-tasks on before running the actual tasks. And furthermore, we need to add this task we are going to create. So we could just use the import tasks from Ansible. I can say the file we want to run, or the task the file where we will put our tasks. So I will just create a folder straight up with this. So let's just save this file and jump straight into the folder. As you can see, I don't have any tasks folder here right now, so I think we should just create it. And we can also navigate straight into it. So like this, now I'm in the tasks folder. So, and as I also write down in the install YAML file, we will install Docker, so why not just call the file for Docker? This, you can just name it whatever you want, but it should probably relate to what you're actually trying to achieve with your task. And now we will put in the code that I showed in presentation. So I will just cheat a little bit and just paste it in here. I have made some small changes. So as you can see here, I have the first part that we were looking on. In the example from the presentation, I actually had multiple tags. That's all right. You can add tag 1, you can have tag 2, and whatever you want. It should probably be connected somehow. So we could just remove that. As we saw earlier, this is the add GPG key, so nothing changed here. Here we have a small change. If we zoom out a little bit, we can have this repo here that utilizes the Ansible facts for getting the what is it? It's the name of the operation or the version of the Ubuntu. So it's like focal and stuff like that. And we say that we want, if it's not installed on our machine, we want to install it. If it's already installed, this ensures that we don't do anything. If it's already if you already added the repository on beforehand, it will just say okay, and it will go to the next task. So nothing new here. This is, as we saw earlier in the pre-tasks, so we have this update cache. Should actually be yes. This will just, it's the same as before. It's the same as sudo apt update. This should be run once more since we added a new repository in the tasks before here. So, and as the last instructions from the installation guide from Docker is to ensure that we have the Docker group and a user. And here I also use this Yinya templating in Ansible that let us look up the environment variable user on the host that we are running the code on. And if that evaluates to an empty string or we don't get anything, which we will actually see inside our newly created container later on, we will just put in dev as just to have a name. So it won't fail with empty string can't be a new user. So this is also a task. In general, this could also be a task to create new users on a Linux machine. for instance. So I think we'll save this one, and we will proceed by going back and actually try to install Docker on this machine. So let's run Ansible playbook install and add this tag, since we tagged all our tasks with Docker, and crossing their fingers that we will get Docker installed inside our Ubuntu box now. So you can see we are getting this OK. So in Ansible, OK means there is no changes. It hasn't actually done any changes. But as you can see on this step here, where we have installed required system packages, it will give us a changed because it's actually installed and did some changes on our host. So you can see it installed the required system packages, it added the GPG apt key, it has updated the repository or added the Docker repository. So now it will update, run this sudo apt-get and install Docker. It will ensure the group exists and added the user. So the test now is to actually verify that Docker actually exists here. So let's try running Docker ps. Okay, so you have this Docker daemon, so could probably be some network issues. Could be that we have to reload the environment. So you can just try getting a new box here. And let's see. Okay, so as with everything doing live demo, we will have some issues probably when we are going to create these Docker images. Since it's VSL, it can be that we maybe should reload the whole terminal. So let's try that. And zoom a bit in and see. Okay, so as always, it worked before, didn't it? But I think we should be able to at least check that Docker is that we have this Docker version installed. So and just I also have this couple of tasks where we can try to install some GUI applications. That's one of the new features in later VSL2 versions. At least you can actually install GUI application and run it from the Windows subsystem for Linux. So I have an example here where I will add this Brave browser just to check that. So I think we will create a new, let's see, go into our project folder and create this, let's call this Brave YAML. And as before, cheated a little bit to find the code beforehand, but it's essentially the same. We are installing required libraries. We have a keyring we need to add to our GPG keyring, and add the repository, and we will also then update our repository before we actually install the browser. So let's save this and try that. And before we can actually run this playbook, we need to extend our tasks list here with a new file that we create. And we could also, it's not necessary to add this tag here, since we already said it in the task that it should update. So so let's save this and try running the playbook again. And the tag Brave this time, since we have all these tasks, but we only want to run the tasks that will install the browser this time. So and as you can see here, I haven't sudo privileges. So let's fix this by, you can also pass in the ask become pass flag to Ansible. Then Ansible will prompt you for your sudo password. So let's give it that. Try running the playbook again. And this time it actually runs. So as you can see, it's already had these required libraries, so it didn't do any changes here. So, but we get these changes later. So, and since this is a GUI application, this installation step can actually take a little bit longer than it would be if you were installing lighter things like a CLI tool that we will have a look on later on. So let's just see if the installation will finish. So there. And also this is a nice thing with Ansible as well. You will always get this recap at the end of the run where it says, okay, how many tasks were okay, how many did changed, was someone unreachable if you tried to run this playbook on multiple hosts, and also how many failed and skipped. So you have a bunch of options here. So you could also ignore steps if they are on some kind of host, and you can group those hosts. So it's very flexible. So let's see if we actually got this installed in Windows for Subsystem. It should actually come a new folder here with Brave. So now I'm actually opening the browser from Windows Subsystem for Linux. So this is actually installed on the Ubuntu. So here I can navigate to Google, or the more actual thing that everyone uses today, ChatGPT. Isn't that the cool stuff today? You can just try. Go over here and see if there are any. It's I think a lot of people have seen this lately. It's at the capacity right now. So I don't. We are not able to utilize ChatGPT during this session. So let's keep on going. And also I will also provide another example where we can install IntelliJ. So we can just create a task for that. Just as before, we go open a new file in the tasks folder, and I will just call it IDE this time, just for simplicity, and also it doesn't necessarily need to be IntelliJ here. It could be some other tools. So, but since I'm a Java person, I have to stick with the religion of Java and IntelliJ, of course. So, and this is the same as before. We have created a task, a tag, I mean, for this, and it will also basically create a directory on my machine. It will get the zip file and extract it. So let's just save this and exit with. Again, we create a new task, so we need to add this to our install playbook. You don't necessarily need to create own file for each thing you are doing. You could just gather everything in one file. Everything could actually just play here in this playbook if you want. But I think it's nice to try separate things, make it maybe a bit easier to change tasks, or you could replace IntelliJ with some other thing later on if you keep the separation. So let's try running this now with the tag for IDE. And it will reach out for this zip file that IntelliJ have published on internet. So it will download it to my machine, put it in this folder that the task was instructed to do, and then it will extract the zip file. So it started extracting there. Let's see. Just do that. And I also think if it doesn't show here, I think we should be able to actually. Okay, so it will jump back to my screen, but okay. So let's just let it finish the job. So, and and also after this has been done, I will just navigate to that folder where the yeah, right there. So as we can see, it all went fine. So since we are in this VSL2, I won't get it directly in my tree here. I don't think so, or because I haven't installed a binary here. So for this one, we will need to, as for now, we will need to go to the folder that we created. So we will jump over there, and inside this binary folder, we can see there is this idea sh that is the executable for the for this one. So if we run this, IntelliJ will start up right here, and we can just say continue, and we don't want to share data. And now I have IntelliJ running on my computer. So we can just create a new project directly, just call it test. We can say it should download the JDK, and we are bleeding edge, so we are using Graal VM, aren't we? So, and this is just a simple example to how fast we can actually get up and running with IntelliJ if that's the preferred IDE we use. So, yeah, and it's use a little bit of time here, so to download, because I haven't installed this on beforehand. So, but next time the JDK will already be here, so it will save us that time, the time for the next project we are creating. So let's just create this and see if we can bring this up. And also, as we can see, we already get this. You can see, I'm not able to zoom, but that's fine. You can see we already get this Hello World application, and as soon as IntelliJ is ready, have done the indexing, we could actually run this code. And it can then print Hello World in our terminal. So I don't think we will wait for that. So I think we will just close it. Yeah, we can actually close it directly in the interface here, or we can be this terminal hacker and just press Control-C here to hopefully stop it. There, just needed some time. And this actually stays. It should have been closed, but okay, that's fine. So let us get back to the playbook. So this was just a couple of examples that we could actually install GUI applications as well. So I will go to the next part where we will expand this playbook and start installing CLI tools and stuff like that, but also set up this Docker environment that we will can use to test our configuration. So I will just create this new file, Docker file, and paste in this code. This is just a base image that we can use to bring up new containers with Ubuntu 22.04. And it will automatically install these tools that we have been seeing earlier, curl and git, build essentials. We will add this Ansible repository, and we will also just, it's actually unnecessary to run curl 2 times, but it's better to be sure, isn't it? And also the same with the git. But at least we will install Ansible. That's the important thing here. And we will also copy over all of our files from where the Docker file is running. So it means that it will copy all of these files here into the container. So we can run Ansible, or we can run this install script maybe, and we can also at least run Ansible against this playbook and install everything in our own container. So to help us a little bit, so we don't have to remember all the commands we are using, I will also create another helping script. I will just call docker build sh. For those who are familiar with Docker, and this is just a simple script for building the image. So let's just call tag it with new computer every time we build it. Instead of keep writing this command every time we have done some changes and we want to test our new configuration. Then it will be much easier if we just put it inside the bash script and give it an executable. So we could just run the command like this. And I have this problem right now, so I'm not entirely sure if I will fix it right now, but that's the main part. Or that's the essential part of it. It's just running the Docker build, so we can create new containers. And if it actually had worked, I will be able to jump into that new container or start a new container with this command. So, and this could also be added into a new bash file if you want to simplify it. And then we could just add it into a run container sh. So let's just copy it before we are opening the new file. And we will remove this one and of course add the shebang. So oops, bin there. And then we can do the same, make it executable. And then we can just use this command to jump into the newly container after we have built it. So, and of course, as shown earlier, this won't work for me. But we can run all those tasks directly in this Ubuntu box. So as an alternative to have it inside the Docker container. So I think now that we have these files, we have this installation script, we have this build Docker build command, can also use the run command. We will expand our playbook with some CLI tools. So just for simplicity, I think we can comment out these GUI applications. As you saw earlier, it takes some time if we are having those. So I just think we can comment those out when we are adding new tasks. So I will just start with installing NeoVim. As mentioned earlier, I I'm a Vim user, so I have learned the power of exiting Vim. For those taking that me. So I will just create an YAML file there, and let's create that file in tasks new Vim YAML. And then this is already exposed in the apt package manager, so I don't need to do anything else than ensure that I can install it. And just run the apt module to install it. And of course, update the repository before installing. We could actually remove this, as mentioned before, but then we have to ensure that we have added that tag here. So so the pre-tasks will be executed instead. So we can just do that, and we can run this playbook again. And this time I won't feed any tags just to see what's happening. As you can see, Ansible will always gathering facts. It's just a step to gather information about the hosts where the playbook is running on. And as you can see, it will try to run these Docker tasks that we did before, but it will just say, okay, since this has already been done. And it will install NeoVim. So by not providing any tags, we essentially tell Ansible to run this whole playbook. So it will from top to down. So it will just import the tasks from the Docker YAML file. And since those tasks are tagged with the Docker, it will run these pre-tasks. And essentially the same for the NeoVim task. So I think we will add some couple of more CLI tools for those who are experienced, are using terminal a lot. We have this tool called Tmux that will help us to split terminals with windows and pane, so we can add sessions and stuff like that. So I think we will just create the task Tmux. I will also show how it works later. So after we have installed it, of course. So let's just paste this command in. And we will actually do the same with Xpanes. That is usually used in combination with Tmux, but I just call it Xpanes. It will essentially allow us to run the same operations on multiple hosts or in multiple panes if you want. So I will show an example on that, but this is the tasks for installing Xpanes. And as you see, we have update cache here, yes. So we actually don't need to add this one in the tags list in the main file right here, as we did with Docker and Vim. So we could just expand this with these new two files, tasks and Tmux, and we could just replace this with Xpanes. And then we can run this. I think it should be, yeah, if Docker would have worked on my machine, not entirely sure if I need to restart or something like that. This is a common error, but if it would have worked there, I would try to demonstrate how to build a container and so on. Or build a container and actually run the playbook inside of the container instead of my machine, though. Because then we could actually run the playbook, verify, and just see if it works as expected. If it doesn't, we could just destroy the container and nothing ever happened. And if it works, we could just do as I will do now, just run the playbook directly on my machine, and it will be installed. All the tools and the software that we installed earlier. So let's just run install again and get those last CLI tools in this Ubuntu box. So let's see. Okay, so it says okay here, tmux, and hopefully it adds Xpanes. Yes. We'll just let that finish, and then we will try to execute those commands and just verify that the tools were installed and that we are actually able to use them directly on our machine. So, and what's nice about this is that we have just written this in code, and we have created this install script that, so if we push this to a GitHub repo, it will be much easier for us to, if we are getting a new computer later on, or we want another development environment without any dependencies that we have already installed on our own machine. We could just clone down the repository if you have it in a repository. And you can just use these files to recreate everything. So as promised, let's see if it works. Let's try tmux. As you can see, we just got a new terminal, a green line down here, and basically that's it. But we have the opportunity to create splits, so we can write commands. We can just write, let's cut this file here, and we can navigate to the other pane, and we can edit one of the tasks, let's say the Docker, and we could also go up here and run apt update in example. And I haven't learned to write my own password, so that's a bit hard. And also when running this, we can also zoom in this pane and hide the other one, and we can bring it back by hitting Control B and C set. So we have those. Yeah, there are a bunch of things we can do with these tools. So, but we won't go into any details on this one. We will just quit here and close down. And since we're already in tmux, we can also try the Xpanes that I mentioned earlier. So we can run, in example, this ping command on every host that we want. In this example, we will just create a pane for each of these IP addresses and try running ping. So this is locally, so let's see what's happened. We can just also stop it. So now we run ping on 192.168.01, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on, all the way. And what's nice about this, in Xpanes, it will synchronize between all of the panes though. So this is the part where Xpanes is also, in combination with tmux, can be a very powerful tool if you are working in a terminal. And this is just an example, so copied straight from the Xpanes documentation on GitHub. So if you want to see more of that, you can just look it up on GitHub. But we also installed the NeoVim. So let's see if that actually worked. As you can see here, we have NeoVim 06.1. So just for fun, let's use test.txt This is an example file created created with DOM installed by Ansible, and we can just remove parts here and just say nano for nano users instead, so it doesn't really matter. So I think that's actually it. It's a short demonstration of how we can start building our own environments, and we can and this is just the beginning, so it could be expanded further with other stuff that you usually use. So I think popular theme is to add your own dot files, and you could also synchronize your SSH keys and stuff like that. So I will think that's it. So, and I also have published these files in a repo on GitHub. So if you're interested, you could actually just find this on my GitHub here. I created a template repo here. So if you want to create your own with a starting point, you can just use this template to create a new repo. So, and this contains all the code that I have shown today. So the install script, you have some tasks here. And I also have another repo with my own environment, or I've started on building my own environment here. So this could also maybe be an inspiration if you want to take that step further. Here I have included the roles type from, or the roles concept from Ansible. So, so as you can see in my own personal computer, I can install Spotify with code. I have Neo in Git, some Git files to actually configure Git setup on my laptop, and stuff like that. So, but this is work in progress, of course. But it can be used for inspiration if you want. But of course, if you want a starting point, this is the repo. Just find me on GitHub and just use it as you want. So I will just bring up the presentation again. I think if I stop over there and do this, I think it's the presentation showing now. So just summarize. I already did it, but we can take it one more time. I now demonstrated how we easily can start building our own development environment by using Ansible. Also with supporting bash scripts. As you also could see in my example, this was very Linux focused, but it could also be created playbooks that will work on Windows or Mac if you want. There will be some resources regarding this. It's idempotent, so you can just run the playbook how many times you want, and it will keep, and it will just give okay if the task has already been executed on the host. And you can also run this on multiple machines if you have. Then I will recommend to look up in the Ansible documentation regarding inventories. They will explain how you can configure and do that. It's usually just an inventory file. Yeah, and also further improvements that I mentioned could be generate the SSH key on the machine if it doesn't exist. You could actually store your SSH key, at least the public key. You can probably encrypt your private key if you want, and then just distribute your key on all the machines. That's a use case. You can also set the git config that I saw, and also these multiple hosts and inventories. So And some resources here. I showed the template repo. So if you want to try this on your own, you can just go there, clone the repo, or create a new repo with that template. Then you will get all the files, all that I have shown today. I can go to my own environment and use that as an inspiration to create your own. And also the Ansible documentation is a good resource. This also have a own page regarding the Windows, since Ansible playbook must be run from a Unix operating system, so either Linux machine or a Mac, but it can distribute or run the tasks on a Windows computer if you want. And my inspiration for this is actually from this course at Frontend Masters, the developer productivity. The course holder there is the Prime Engine. So, and he's also a good resource to have a look on YouTube. He's screaming a bunch on Twitch normally, but it's also informative videos. So I think there is a question here. Yeah? So I think you can answer that. So it's a question here. In your experience, how much extra work is there in converting a Linux-focused Ansible files to work on Windows and vice versa? That's actually a good question. I haven't tried it. When I have used Ansible, I have always written playbooks for Unix systems, or preferably Linux, in my experience. But I have had a look in this documentation. I think I can bring it up. Let's see. I will share my screen again, and we can have a look. Because they have this. Let's see. I will bring up this Ansible documentation. Just see what screen I'm going to share. It's this one, where they also have these examples of writing playbooks for Windows. So it's usually well documented here. So, but I think we can also have a look on this resource that I have in my presentation. Because that shows an example of, I think they are using something called WinChock or something like that. WinChocolate, Win package, and you can also run WinCommand and WinShell. So I guess if you are experienced with PowerShell, it should be familiar for you, doing that one. So maybe a bit small, so maybe too big, but should see. They have a bunch of examples here, though. So this is usually how I also create my own playbooks. I will always go into the documentation, look at those examples, and adjust it to my own usage. So I think that is good. So if there aren't any other questions, I think we are done here today. So hopefully you will be able to start creating your environment, and of course writing as code. Thank you.